one here. These two teams fighting for points. They'll get more if they close it out inside of regulation compared to OT, but we've also got the bans coming up on screen now. Let's take a quick look at those. See who XSET's going to knock out first, as they'll remove Flores. He's still continuing to become a more and more common ban, specifically here in North America, due to how universally useful he is for dealing with defensive utility.
Yeah, we've really started to see Flores ramp up in the ban department when it comes to a lot of these maps that have a lot of shield play in particular around the area that he's really, really good at getting rid of, strictly because you don't have to throw anything inside that can be be thwarted from ADSs or my discs or what have you. So Flores just a more direct route to get rid of those kind of setups. Nomad, that one's pretty self-explanatory, one that we see quite often here on Villa, especially with the stairways and the way that people want to rotate. Well, actually going to round out DarkZero's bans here. That one, once again, pretty self-explanatory, and we're going to have Mira as our last.
So, no huge surprises when it comes to the bans. Like we said, Flores is starting to become a fairly common one, and aside from that, every other ban we're going to have here aligns pretty well with what we have seen in the meta, especially the Nomad, to try and knock out the anti-roam capability, or at least weaken it to some extent. As we get into it, though, XSET's going to be starting out on the defensive side. This is going to be the big test here inside of this matchup as well. You heard the analysis desk talk about it a little bit. DarkZero is having a rough time honing in their attacking strategy right now, and Villa is seriously going to test their strengths on that to quite a large degree, even though this is their best map statistically. This might be what XSET was relying on, at least in part, to try to get ahead early here if we're going to see any bit of early success come out from them. They'll be starting out their defense upstairs in the trophy and statuary room.
Also worth pointing out here, just for DarkZero's sake, is that the offense isn't very limited in the tools that they're going to have at their disposal inside of this game. So should be fairly straightforward for them on their side, especially if they have to make some adjustments later on because this isn't working out. They'll have access to all of the hard breachers as well as the supporting teammates in order to achieve any task that they really want to. So should be fairly straightforward on their end. As for XSET, I mean, they've got everything that could possibly make them comfortable. We got Prod back on the Kaid. We'll be bringing those along for the ride to lock up the triple wall here inside of Statue, and really everything else just really coming together for a regular schmegular trophy statuary defense. Let's see how it rolls.
All right, let's take a quick peek and indeed see how XSET will be able to defend things out upstairs here, with that a little bit of an extra emphasis going down on the inside of the kitchen, of course. For DarkZero, we've got them spawned out in reality here, so we're going to see how they'll begin their push, and it won't be too surprising. Got a big bulk of their players heading over to the northeast side of the building as they're going to try and take control of those master rappels, as well as the area below that, leading into areas such as Pantry, so that this team can start to gain some map control to work off of here, although it's very early days for them. It's going to be quite a bit before any of the real action gets started, as DarkZero still needs to get their feet on the ground first.
Still early beginnings inside of this round, and a lot of jobs for DarkZero to still get done. They'll be starting things off on the master balcony, and this is going to be a unit of 3 working across this. They've also brought Dokkaebi here, so this will help in part with the Jackal and clearing things out over on the far side of the building, that being the south currently. Also, Razor, funny enough, I don't know how he'd managed to do this, but he's actually spelt the XSET part of his name in lowercase rather than uppercase, so we won't make fun of him too much, but Razor, I mean, come on, man. You got to make sure to match the rest of the team here. Yeah, right. He's just trying to win this game so quickly up against DarkZero right now. But, I mean, DarkZero's not really giving him too much just yet. It's been a patience game so far from XSET that DarkZero have not really tried to push on.
Maybe he had caps lock on and then he hit the shift key.
Oh, no. That'd be the absolute worst.
That's probably the real explanation. But either way,
do you know any chaotic people that happen to capitalize words with the caps lock key instead?
Yeah, they also aim with inverted aim in FPS usually. So creators here gonna try to make a play from the top of red. He does notice the drone spotting him out here from the corner of 90, so he's going to remain relatively safe as a result of that. But actually, it's gonna be Prod elsewhere that gets eliminated. Filthy's gonna have better luck picking something up for this defense, but he too is gonna get exchanged upon pretty quickly as DarkZero pushes themselves forward with an early 4v3 to control, though it's not fully under their control as of yet. You can see quite a bit of movement still moving around here for XSET. That could potentially still cause a couple more frags to happen here within the next few seconds, not to mention the time getting low here as we enter the last minute.
And that's going to be the big issue right now, especially with this wall being locked up. But it seems like DarkZero's found some initial answers, or at least the beginnings of one. Razor will take some serious damage, down to 1 HP here, and this is going to make it very straightforward going forward. But not for Pamazoo. He's actually going to lose his head to Razor, playing the position around the stairwell. And XSET, they're making it look easy right now on this defensive end. They'll take out Hyper as well, and really set DarkZero onto this timer, down to the captain of Canadian, as well as NJR to try and clean this up. Canadian with 2 big frags already inside of this round as well. So they want to try and make good on this promise. Graders, he's going to dip out of trophy, or rather statuary, from behind the shield. He's actually going to make it out alive, but not before Canadian's able to take down Razor here on the split. Now it's just up to Creators and one more here in the likes of NBK to try and hold back NJR. He doesn't have very much time, but now he's got a secondary out to try and deal with this problem, but doesn't have too much, especially with the case not in hand. No solutions at hand either, so that's going to be the first round going XSET's way.
Not enough time, unfortunately, being built up there for DarkZero to work their way into the site, and seemingly as well, not enough confidence to venture into that site. In the dying seconds of the round, we could see Canadian posting up at the master doorway, for example, to try to hunt down players on the other side over in the rotate, whether it was from Astro or inside of Trophy itself there. So DarkZero struggling to find that footing throughout most of the round, leaves them without a choice as they force their way in the final seconds and ultimately feed those kills from the 4v3 advantage over to XSET, allowing for them to equalize it and eventually take control of the round outright for that team.
Yeah, DarkZero taking a lot of time initially, but they get some really solid picks for it. I think the biggest thing that it comes down to is DarkZero really not being able to break up their offense to actually attack the site the way that they wanted to, especially with how things ended up going down in Bathroom. We thought it was going to be fairly straightforward with Razor taking quite a bit of damage, but it wasn't. I mean, he just wins the fight right on entry, and there's not really much you can do past that. It's down to a 3 versus 3. Your other guy gets lost off the shield player inside of sight, and then it's all for naught really at that point. You know, you're going to have to try and collapse in and try and pick up some big frags on site, and I mean that's a lot to try and do with only 2 people up against 3, even with somebody that's very weak, just because of the refrag opportunity presented to the defense. And XSET just played out that situation extremely well overall, especially with their man count. Either way though, we're headed into round 2 now, folks, as DarkZero will be back out and onto the board, and they're already making some serious adjustments. We're gonna have Thatcher coming into play like we were talking about earlier. They don't really have any limitations on what they can do with this offensive set here, with Flores and Nomad being the only offensive bans, so they're going to have access to all of these cool little toys and stuff like that. So we'll have EMPs coming in for this one. Oh, big kill.
Wow, Creators jumping down the stairs and hiding in the middle of them is going to be able to steal a kill away. I don't even think he jumped down there. I think it was just there at the beginning of the round as well. So a bit of an edgy position for XSET, but it works to find Panba in the opening seconds of the round, and once again give our defenders a good footing to start off with.
We'll have Razor still over here on this far side working this for the time, and it's actually going to be Eclipse to strike next. He'll take down NVK. Mute Jammers will obviously still persist, but they'll be happy that they've been able to equalize here, although they have lost some of their soft breach. They do still have Eclipse, and he's going to have frag grenades to be able to assist that, but outside of that, they don't have any explosives to really deal with any of these hard-to-reach areas that XSET have set up near sight, especially with a Razor on this Goyo.
He will be able to rotate up here. He's going to be heard, however, by members of DarkZero that were sitting outside of the window in Master Bathroom. So not necessarily going to be able to play around that as of yet, but that will also limit potentially Razor's capability if he tries to do anything himself, as the drone will now reconfirm that he'll have positioning over here by Astro. He's going to take a bit of an unexpected turn, though, as he works his way downstairs instead to try and contribute at a later point in the round, since the jig is up for his play here inside of the Astro room. And you'll see that in a moment here as DarkZero are going to funnel him out of position, or rather what would have been his position. Still, though, Razor successfully dodging that is going to allow for him to have more play potential closer to the red stairs, it seems. That is, of course, until we see this Jackal scan come out, and once more, he'll be revealed down here. They won't necessarily catch him moving up the stairs just yet, but it will certainly limit his potential map controls. We could see Hyper finally locking him down, but not able to get the kill. At minimum, a lot of time now being wasted by Razor's position, regardless of if he gets a kill or not and trades anything down here. DarkZero are having to completely distract themselves from the main execute in order to take care of Razor while he just really messes with them in the basement.
Yeah, just gonna rat out here, and this is a perfect place to do it. This is not something you want to get caught in if you're on the offense here on Villa. This is such a time waste. Look at how much Hyper has actually achieved in this area. Nothing. Razor just ran downstairs, he tracked him, and he stood down here for a minute straight. Now he's got to try and get back with his team. They've already lost another person, and XSET are making a dominant stance on site. They've downed Hyper as well, and it was actually Razor the one to do it. So Hyper's gonna lose track of him, lose his life as well, and now it's just all down to NJR as well as Eclipse to get something done here at Bus Door. And, well, I'm gonna have spoilers for you folks. They're not going to get much done here. Lots of smokes as well as 4 people and just way too much utility to try and fight back. It's going to take a miracle in order to make this work. So let's see if they've got it in the bag. NJR with the initial one, but are they worried about Razor on the flank? No. The case will go down, and the last remaining player will go down to Razor's hand as well. The second round goes XSET's way.
Beautiful play from Razor specifically, but obviously great work from the rest of XSET too to really just waste the entire clock down there for DarkZero and not let them do anything close to the site, let alone even make much of an attempt to push into it. As we see there in the dying few seconds, we pretty much knew the way it was going to go due to the fact that Razor's flank never was dealt with back in the basement there, and he was able to waste a good 2 minutes or so off of the clock and prevent DarkZero from focusing on gaining intel where they would have needed it inside of the site for that potential push there in the final few seconds.
The most insane thing about that is that it's almost the perfect representation of what you should be doing as a roamer. He actually had 0 impact early inside of the kill department. He looked at somebody, got droned, missed the drone, shot the drone, then ran downstairs and they tracked him for almost 2 minutes straight. And he wasted all of that time, and he never took the fight with Hyper until he had the advantage and he came back upstairs. That was a perfect roam from Razor. If you're trying to improve your roam game, definitely look into how he played that round overall. XSET doing a very, very good job right now. As for DarkZero, though, you can't say the same. They've made an adjustment yet again here. NJR off of the Thatcher. He's going to bring the Dokkaebi back into play. They've dropped the Jackal as well. Hyper's going to be onto that Thatcher. So just feeling like they're not really getting enough out of the Jackal, and I have to agree with them right now. I don't think Jackal's really doing anything for them. I mean, it's giving Hyper a good gun, but, I mean, Hyper with any gun's good. So you want something that's going to get you a little bit more traction in the round, and they're just really not finding these early picks like they're looking for with this early info.
I mean, as we saw in that last round there, it's giving them the general position of the player on XSET to deal with, but it's not necessarily opening up any windows to actually deal with said player or force them back into the site where obviously DarkZero would like for them to be so they can focus on the execute. So XSET is going to be allowed that greater degree of freedom now, since we'll see DarkZero remove it from their lineup entirely and bring more utility-focused executes to the table. As the time starts to tick down against their favor, though, once more they're going to be focusing on these repels over towards the master side for the first minute or so. We can see Panba already working on one of those down on the first floor to open up pantry access. Potentially could take a fight from here if somebody on XSET wants to challenge, but the inside anchors have been fairly passive, so I'd say that there's going to be a pretty low chance of that happening. A bit of a different story upstairs, though, as we have the Creators and NVK getting ready for the eventual master bedroom push, where they'll be able to possibly open up some kill opportunities here for their squad in the next minute or so.
We'll see if that comes to fruition. Still plenty of time, obviously, to get a lot of things done, but it's Creators to strike true first for XSET, and they've looked just impossible to deal with so far on this defensive half, but we could say the same about DarkZero once we get to their defensive side, and we have quite a while till we end up getting there, so I'll hold my breath on that and see if they can improve any time ahead. Either way, you got to be happy for XSET, especially with how their season has been going so far, that they've bounced back in such convincing fashion. They started off so strong as well here up against an opponent like DarkZero. Canadian going down as well, actually. Didn't even catch that one just yet. That's going to be the hard breach gone. Yes, they've been able to make a hole, but, I mean, it's not going to mean all that much. The good news is that they'll be able to get the soft destruction into this area soon enough, but the issue is with that is that they also have to deal with the artillery down low from the likes of Filthy.
A similar story so far from the 3 rounds that we've seen get played out. DarkZero able to get usually the opening map control they want, that first room or two, usually at a cost of one of their own players, eventually trading it back. But unfortunately, spending so much time to get that small amount of control, they never really have the appropriate amount of time to properly transition down to the site. This is looking like possibly a bit of a start of a change, however, here, as we can see DarkZero focusing much more on the site play and much earlier on in the round, and also also having a much greater lock on the potential strategy from XSET, as we can see Hyper making quick work of the Red Stairs player, hopping in himself, and now moving into the site. DZ are locking down on this execute, and so far XSET is not able to withstand it. Down to Filthy as well as Creators, and Filthy goes bye-bye pretty quickly too. So now just Creators from the inside of Pantry here in a 1v4, and he doesn't even have a safe way out of Pantry. You can see, yeah, there's the hop over, but he's also got a laser gate to play through. However, all of this is going to give the intel over to DZ. They know that he'll be out and about in the kitchen now, and you can see DarkZero not giving him a single fight or a single chance to clutch this out through a series of divided 1v1s. He's going to have to take them all on at once, and that more than likely is not going to go his way. So it should be safe odds. Okay, maybe not that safe for DarkZero to get onto the board, as we'll see Hyper quickly trade that last frag out and complete the first round for DZ.
All right, so I've had a little theory for a long time with Canadian, and it's the Canadian death theory. Do you want to hear what it is?
What's that?
So it's the fact of when Canadian dies, and he dies early, he's able to see everything that all of his teammates are doing, and everything gets coordinated flawlessly from that point on. Did you see how much DarkZero's offense just changed right there? It was almost done perfectly across the board. And it's all because he is able to micromanage and see all of the information that they have, and he doesn't have to ask anybody for a damn thing at all. He's just able to do it all himself. Extremely impressive. And he does it once again. I've seen this time and time again with Canadian over his career, where he's able to just take the reins. It's not like he's already doing that, but when you're in the game and you're actually fighting and having to take gunfights and stuff like that, it's just a different environment. But when you're dead and you're looking at what your team's doing and that kind of stuff, that's the time where you can really like take a hold of those reins and just run with it. And that was one of those moments. I'm telling you right now that was a full-on Canadian play through and through. Very well done to get the offense in order and get that plant down in such convincing fashion. XSET really had no chance to try and refrag either.
Well, some great work for the leadership over on DarkZero, if our assumption is correct there, and it will finally net them their very first round. It's a question of consistency from this point forward, however. XSET's potential roam or extended game is still wasting a lot of early time off of the clock here, so if DarkZero is going to go right back to getting tripped up by that, the very same issue could very well stop them from claiming a second, let alone any other additional rounds inside of this half, and allow for XSET to control what would be a dominating scoreline at 5-1. The DarkZero fans at home, though, they're not going to tolerate that, so let's see what DarkZero is going to show us to try and change that potential fate, make this scoreline a little bit more competitive at halftime here, as DZ once more goes for that early rappel control, as well as the first floor balcony control outside to get them in the laundry and eventually steal the control of the kitchen. And as we can see here, dining room away from the defenders here. Canadian already working his way into laundry. Is going to be a little bit cautious of potential aggressive plays from inside of Master there, but ultimately allows to get his exothermic down, and even better than that, in a completely detached situation, NJR was able to find out Filthy, taking him down, removing what would have been the late round smoke utility from XSET's pocket now.
I was gonna say, I don't like getting on players, but it's like, Filthy, you are smoke, man. You should probably not be in the most aggressive spot you can be and losing that utility early, but not too much you can really do about it now. DarkZero gonna get the man advantage here pretty early on, so let's see what they're able to do with it. Really focused on this top floor as of right now. Obviously, they've already dealt with what was going on down low. Didn't necessarily step forward and go in to get the kill, but they didn't have to. Instead, they were able to use that exothermic to create some space around the laundry area for dining, so that Pambazoo can hold this and make sure that no nitro cells will come through and try and kill anyone. So now DarkZero have to try and deal with some of these other positions up and around this area here for XSET. Prod actually going to toss a nitro cell, but still going to make it out alive with the nitro cell intact as well. And he'll be counting his lucky stars later if that comes in handy.
Continuing to see the time tick down here. We're over halfway through it now, and XSET remaining as patient as they have been in previous rounds. This means they've got a lot of confidence built up for them here. They want DarkZero to make the mistake. They want DarkZero to waste their drone count, as well as the remaining time bank here, to set themselves up. And DarkZero actually nearly doing that, as we can see Hyper nearly getting himself one of those lineups against Creators. But instead, it's going to be Creators himself that's able to find Eclipse to even out the numbers here. NJR trying to put it back under the control of DZ, but he's still outside here right now, trying to work into the master closet. Canadian slow slowly getting pecked down from the back of Trophy by Prod also. So once again, that same issue popping out here for DZ of them unable to find an appropriate entry, but now starting to change as Hyper finally gets a kill against one of the players in Trophy. Panba's going to follow it up with another one as well, so maybe DarkZero wasn't out of the running just yet there those few seconds ago. Creators and NVK now trying to bring it back for themselves here, and it's them who can't move around the site anymore here. DarkZero flipping the script on their opponents, leaving NVK alone, and DarkZero with a likely second round to go up on the board here in just a second. There we go, as DarkZero get it done with a desperate execute in the final seconds of the round yet again.
DarkZero able to get it done after they're able to breach open the walls and start attempting these plants. Canadian has got to be happy with how that round went as well. They had an early game plan how they wanted to handle that downstairs area. They immediately hop in, exothermic that, head up top and pop that wall as well, and just started applying as much pressure as possible. Also, Canadian going down there in the last moment as well. So a little unfortunate for him, but the team able to get it done nevertheless. And what we were talking about before, able to oversight things and see exactly what's going on, and more than likely assisting them in that regard. Either way, that's going to tie things up here at a 2-2 scoreline. And XSET, they're feeling frisky. They're going to head back to the same site and see what they can get done. They're going to have a major adjustment come through here, though. They're going to have a little bit more insight as to what goes on in Master and some other portions of the map with the likes of Valkyrie, but they're going to lose those Electro Claws from Kayi.
With that getting swapped out here, obviously makes DarkZero's early control a little bit easier to set up for themselves, most notably with trying to open up things like this triple-tiered wall here going between Master as well as Statuary, but we'll see how DarkZero are able to even get access to that for themselves here, as it'll be a slow process of building up to that. We can once again see quite a bit of resistance coming in downstairs from XSET, and they'll be roaming around looking to cause problems, and as we've seen throughout the past 4 rounds, more than anything, waste time away from DarkZero and try to leave them not enough of an appropriate amount of it to figure out the intel about what's going on the site and then properly execute through to it. So Razor, I think, is going to get spotted working his way into Billiards by Canadian's drone there. Not going to matter too much, though, as they would have expected to find him, I believe, in this area of the map. Anyway, this is what the drone's not going to spot, though, is him moving back out to main stairs. Thankfully, another drone will move in and reaffirm his position, but Razor is feeling a little bit edgy here today, as he's going to try to hold the doorway, but ultimately for no peeks to come out for DZ. So he is able to back towards the bookcase, where he'll get spotted one more time. He'll have to back up a little bit more than likely as a result of that, if he's looking to play things safely here. Yeah, he'll go into the bar now to wait out the next few moves.
Well, so far, XSET have done a bang-up job of slowing down DarkZero on this side of the map. I mean, the drones are still spun up as well, and XSET are able to slowly dwindle these down, and honestly, it's not for too much either. I mean, Creators, he's going to take a little bit of a lick, but outside of that, nothing really going on. They've been able to delay DarkZero as well as take out 4 separate drones. NJR might be missing 1 as well, so could already have half of the drone economy gone inside of the first minute. Now, DarkZero, they still have to reassess this space. They're going to end up breaking the initial panel here so they can get their angle in towards Gun Vault, but there's no one in this space anymore. All of this is free space for DarkZero to take. They just simply don't know it yet, and here we go with XSET having a really fantastic call early here to set the pace. Let's see if DarkZero can try to make an adjustment at this halfway mark and really put some heat on XSET.
Only potential issue this could have is the fact that since we didn't see their players stick out longer, DarkZero is going to have the luxury of that extra time. However, they're doing a good job of bleeding down the drone count, already knocking out about 4 of the 10 that DarkZero had available at the beginning of this round. So it's possible that they could bleed out the large majority of those before we get down to a low timer on the clock. And you can see some advanced positions closer to the site now set up for XSET because DarkZero hasn't been able to clear out this specific part of the map as they usually do. Razor tries to get aggressive, pounding on that previous fact that I just mentioned there as he hops out the window, but ultimately to not find anything at all and leave him in a very awkward position here, since the window that was popped is covering his cross. He can't successfully run away and hope to make it back to the site alive. He kind of is going to just sit here and continue to play out the round. The good news is, though, that's creating a little bit of an awkward wedge for DarkZero's own execute. Canadian's going to hop in, self-blinds himself in the process here, but Razor was hit as well. That won't matter, though, when Razor still ultimately wins the 1v1 versus Canadian, and arguably more importantly, drops the case on the ground and walk-in closet. Hyper and the rest of DarkZero now need to work together to make that final push, get back the OBJ, and get onto the site with it, but I don't know if they'll be able to. NVK fends off some of the first players trying to do that. Hyper will trade on to Prod, blood. Eclipse as well, though, in the sight, battling his way to a potential win. They're doing this right now. It's all on Razor with the case in hand, but he can win it out on his own, and he's going to do it by just sitting in the corner and running the time down.
Oh, Canadian has got to be so angry with himself right now. That last stun was the one that ended up doing it. Just hopped in a little bit too quickly and ended up fully blinding himself, giving Razor plenty of time to be able to get away from those stuns himself, get his screen back in order, and pop a shot at him. That's going to be the case down, and the rest of the round goes by the wayside of XSET. Fantastic stuff for them once again. DarkZero, I mean, they try to come back in really convincing fashion, but what else can you say? I mean, you made the bed, so you got to lay in it at that point. You end up losing the case inside a master closet, and that's all she wrote for that one. XSET up 3-2 currently, and they're going to be headed to AVG for the very last defense.
Super unfortunate mistake coming out there from Canadian, and that could very well potentially cost DarkZero the lead, or at least a tying point at halftime now, as DarkZero, despite the odds that had been set against them, they're still able to nearly win that round, at least in terms of positioning. Unfortunately, the detour to back into Master to try and pick up the case was quite literally the only thing they could not accomplish to win that one. And since the case was down there, it became the thing that also causes them to lose the round. XSET take the lead away from DZ again here at 3-2. And as Stokes mentioned, have fallen back on AVG for the final round of their own defense. We're going to see the Cade brought back in to re-electrocute primarily the 90 angles. We've seen there that'll cover off bar, and more than likely going to, actually no, not pocketing the second one, just going to use it on the other part of this corner.
He's allowed to put his mirrors wherever he wants to, or whatever you were talking about. I'm sorry. I was looking at my notes over there for a second, so I didn't see exactly what it was. We don't even have mirrors. They're banned. What am I talking about?
Cade, the Cade stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You might want those. That might actually help out a little bit, to be honest with you. And it's way better than batteries, but that's for another day. What's going on right now is that Razor's having another fight in the basement, and it's well, guys, it's going to be a heavyweight bout. We've already had this one, so we'll call this Hyper Razor 2, but it's not going to happen. So I really hope you guys saved your money on the pay-per-view, because Hyper backed out. He's going to head upstairs instead. Didn't find any feet down low either, so Razor's more than likely going to be able to play this space for some time, and possibly come up big with a rotation later on. DarkZero shouldn't drone that again. So he's got free space here. We just got to see what we'll do with it.
Free space indeed, but that doesn't necessarily translate to anything in and of itself. So Panba, now with that free space to play with, is going to open up a hole downstairs here to try and see if he can isolate out some of the players that are closer to the bookcase 90. But not going to find them initially, however. Creators does take a step past it a couple seconds later and nearly peeps his head out a few more after that. Panba currently a little bit mad at himself that he's not able to close out on Creators in that situation, but still going to be okay, considering that they were able to at least do the damage to him there. So DarkZero taking a slight lead in that regard. However, much more still to build off of here with this remaining minute and a half, and as far as I can see here, DarkZero have barely touched the main bulk of that defensive setup here, as they try to work their way in from the trophy side of the map in order to get the necessary control. This is another aspect as well. Razor back on the red stairs down in the basement once again. That drone that you just saw there was not going past him. It was one floor up. So Razor, at this point, unless something else caught him, is undetected by the members of DarkZero and can once again completely throw a wrench in the gears of what will eventually be DZ's execute in the next 30 seconds or so here.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where I start to get tense, is when things can go down in such a multitude of different ways. It's going to be Panbazoo to light the fuse here. We'll take down Filthy, as Filthy once again going down early. Prod will go down as well, so DarkZero with a huge advantage, but they've lost the plot. Razor knows where 2 is. He needs to win this second fight, though, and Panbazoo will shut him down. It's a 4 versus 2 now. XSET trying to bounce back. Serious damage onto Canadian, but they can't capitalize on it. Nitro sell out from NVK, and it'll bag one. NJR goes down, but more importantly, he has the case in hand. It'll go down at the bus doors. Creators and NVK both try and work this side of the site. Currently sitting inside of Gun Vault as well as Bar. Panbazoo has the cross, and he knows one has to be here, but he goes fishing on the wrong angle. Creators will take him down, but they've lost with the plants going down as well. There's a huge amount of smoke here. Creators has to reload, and now they're going to try and rush in. They found the space, but it's still down. And NVK, oh my God! They hit fire to shut down Canadian, and what a way to get back at your ex-teammate.
And Creators as well, just gonna tap the crouch key a few times here, because why the heck not with a clutch like that? NVK, what a play, what a heroic move to venture forth through the smoke. Yeah, no, we could see him building up the confidence to work his way in towards it. He obviously knows as well, this is a make or break play. Either I'm instantly getting picked here, or I'm killing both of them. And thankfully for him, it went out in his favor there as XSET bring a massive clutch forward to make sure that they control the lead going into this second half now at 4-2.
And that right there is why everyone gets on teams when it comes to timing of executes. DarkZero are taking their sweet time at clearing the building, and that is not a bad thing. XSET have done a lot of roaming, especially on their defenses here, obviously. But DarkZero, I mean, when it comes down to execute time, they just have such a minimal amount of it that they're not really able to look for things that they necessarily want to when they're actually looking into sight, and it forces them into these situations where they have to go for these low-timed executes, or run out of bodies, and all these other issues. They're just not able to handle the XSET players on site in the way that they necessarily should. So unfortunately, unfortunate for them, but it's going to be a 2-4 lead in favor of XSET as they are going over to their offensive side, and they're going to have a huge difference in what they want to bring to the table for their operator lineup. I mean, we're talking Buck, Ying, and Yana all being brought to the table.
For the defense, obviously a little bit of a slightly different flair coming out for DZ, as we're going to have the double delay composition being built up by them, both the smoke as well as the Tachanka coming out for Canadian. Usual actual setup, though, when it comes to utility deployment going out, especially towards the front stairs area. We're even going to see a little bit of aggression built up over here in Astro as well, just to allow Eclipse to play in behind the desk, though, with that deployable shield. Hyper, I think, is just going to poke in for a couple bullets to get thrown out over towards the master bedroom side, but actually, he's going to stick around here for a bit of an extension, as well as we've got some reinforced walls just outside of the master bedroom going to the inside of statuary there. So they're going to try to contest XSET's initial push and see if they can maybe get an opening kill or two in their favor before falling back to the site.
Well, I've got to say I really do like it, especially with this pick coming in here from Hyper. He's got the nice cross angles he's able to abuse into the closet here. No one really checking that out with the drone, but MVK will fire back. He takes down Canadian, and that's going to be the chunk off the table. So we'll be able to use those fire grenades to try and deal with any of that anymore. Hyper trying to get out of this space right now. He's motioned through benches and made it part of the way there. Oh, such major damage onto MVK, who attempts the re-peek of all things. But he's going to get away with that either way. Low HP now for NVK, but won't matter too much going forward. They just really need him for these frag grenades, as Razor's Bin does it.
Well, and even tit for tat to start the round off with. Both teams go down to the 4v4. Obviously, DarkZero wins it in slight due to the extra damage done to NVK, but won't count that too heavily just as of yet. Let's wait and see what happens over this next minute or so as XSET continues to build up their potential positioning, which they'll use to swing into the site with. NVK, this could be a pretty drastic change if we're going to see him go on to repel this late into the round, but will not end up being the case. And there's another element that's oftentimes became a problem for DarkZero on their own attacks, as well as now going to be one here for XSET. And that's going to be Eclipse still left downstairs undealt with by the members of XSET, so he's going to be allowed to really throw himself at his opponents in that last 30 to 40 seconds to actually make an aggressive play. As far as I'm aware, no one on XSET is aware of the fact that he's down there inside of library right now, although that could be changing as he runs around here. Could potentially give out some sound intel to the players above him if he's not too cautious. Eclipse, though, making the run for it, will work his way finally back up to the first floor and start to get in the way of these XSET members looking to line up and execute. Speaking of which, they are ready to go for it as their smokes go down, and Filthy drops the Candelas. Very well placed as well. One goes deep into the site, another one securely blinds out the inside of Gunfall, allowing for a swift insertion here for Filthy. He's going to be able to get 2 kills for himself, still holds control of it. The planter has gone down in the meanwhile here, and that's going to become a big issue. As talked about, Eclipse jumping his way into the fight here now, takes out 3 different players from the back of the execute, leaving only NVK in this situation. And as well, that will go right into Eclipse's pocket also. He gets a quad for this one and shuts down all of the aggressive tendencies from XSET.
Always good for one. Always good for one when it comes down to a clip. So clutch up here again at a time where DarkZero really needed it. XSET trying to apply the pressure through the Ying play, but once Ying gets in a gun vault, Filthy kind of loses the plot. He doesn't really know where he wants to go with it, and DarkZero have already made their moves. They've motioned out of the actual site. They've got case control as well, and they're able to take him out. They're a pretty cheeky angle out towards the bar door. Either way, though, XSET's offense ends up breaking down on the entry there, and they're not even able to try and make a plant attempt. DarkZero, they're starting to put these defenses together, and that's where they're going to head to Trophy Statuary for their very next one. They're going to have a 6-pick off of the smoke as well over to the ward, and I also believe we saw a Thunderbird there, which we did. Eclipse is going to be bringing that to the table, and Rooney will be along for the ride in the likes of Hyper.
So DZ is starting to feel themselves a little bit more here now as they're going to bring that out and potentially enable more of an aggressive fighting capability for quite a few of their players, specifically on some of these peeking angles, such as towards the doorway. Curious to see where else we're going to see these stations get put down by Eclipse to re-enable that potential for the other members of DarkZero here also. But save from that, we are seeing a lot of the usual bits and pieces of the trophy setup come into the fold for this one, such as the mute to act as the straightforward block off of the triple wall here, on top of the laser gates coming out there from Hyper too, and then other bits of utility sprinkled in there amongst that. For XSET, things are going to remain largely the same for what we expect to come out of an attacking lineup here, so no huge departures from the ordinary there.
Oh, man.
Out on the table and working their way in, from the looks of it, from south side here. And at the same time, though, DZ is also going to be contesting from the south side.
I mean, there's so much awesome stuff going on. XSET coming in from the south side and Hyper in the position that he's currently in with Pambazoo, but also what's going on currently in the master closet all the way across. And no! Oh, no! Paul, not like this. Oh, that's so unfortunate. He drops the hatch trying to get away from everyone, and Creator simply skeleton keys down the door for Art Studio and kills him. Oh, that was definitely not supposed to happen that way. But either way, Razor, he's starting to push himself forward here with the hologram of Aruni, or rather, Yana. Hasn't found too much, though. And DarkZero member still residing in this area. It's going to be Pambazoo and one more, but no longer Pambazoo, as he'll lose his life. And now Razor set to try and push forward, but not set for war just yet. They want to make sure that they're actually moving in the proper space, and you can see DarkZero. They're going to try and solve this problem, because they know if they start to push forward on this end, it's more than likely curtains. Already some adjustments going around to try and get some Nitro Cell plays and everything else on the board, but oh no, that's pulled off the table as well. The Nitro Cell goes wide, and it's not going to get anything for DZ.
The timing for this round so far from DarkZero has been so unfortunate, as both Panda and Hyper will get themselves caught. Finally, their luck changes, though. Creators makes a mistake, or rather, whoever was droning their four Creators makes a mistake. Passes by without spotting the position of NJR, allowing for a trade to come out.
What?
Oh, no. How does that even happen? Razor is going to end up accidentally knocking out Prod, while at the same time, just a second later, also catching Canadian. So XSET still takes the lead here, although it could have been much stronger at 4v2 had we not had that awkward shuffle more than likely go on there, leading to the death of one of their teammates. They are going to spot out the position of Eclipse here, though. They know that he'll be supported behind this deployable shield. So one target firmly locked in for XSET. Just has to figure out where the other one will play from. It's NJR, who escaped the trade from back over at 90, made it back into Trophy itself, and now getting boosted up here by these Kona stations to try and stay alive and, more importantly, win the pivotal fight that'll come across this divide in just a second here. And JR gets at least an early piece of it there. Players pushing his way towards the connector. XSET don't seem to have the confidence just yet, but that's going to be changing soon as they work their way in. Just the Gemini to start off with, but now the real peak from Razor a second later, and it's not too friendly to him, unfortunately, as it goes right into his body, costing him a bit of HP. Still gets himself into the site for the plan, and NVK completes the wraparound to find NJR, and a second later, take out the last defender as well there. XSET continues to excel as they get closer and closer towards a win for themselves.
I mean, XSET able to trade out in a really positive way. DarkZero can't do a single dang thing about their take here for the study side, and that's why we're going to see a timeout from DarkZero. And honestly, the proper time as well. XSET 1 round away from 6. That match point we always talk about. So definitely the time for BC to step in and try and say something, because they need an adjustment coming in here. These early gunfights not really going their way on either side of the coin, and it's still happening yet again here. Honestly, to me, it just feels like DarkZero's giving up just a little bit too much. They're really trying to reach and deal some serious damage to XSET early, but they're ready for that. They're prepared and they're fighting back, and that's how they're really starting to find these early picks, especially on this side.
Well, for XSET, finding these attacking rounds here may be the make or break thing that allows them to push this team over the edge and take another, what would be an upset victory, although they're going to become less and less upsetting here as XSET's starting to become very competitive towards the end of the stage, and they need to as well. If you were here for our analysis desk segment, XSET, despite the recent ascension for them, they are still drastically close to potentially being relegated at the end of this stage, so they need to try and pick up as many wins as possible in their final matches here as we enter the last 4 or 5 weeks of Stage 3 in order to try and avoid that fate. And unfortunately, they don't have the easiest roster list to do that with, facing DarkZero today, as well as many of the other top 4 or 5 teams in North America following this match too. So XSET have a very tough few challenges ahead of them. This match right here is only the start of it, but they seem to be doing quite well with a 5-3 lead. DarkZero's timeout is now finished. Let's see if they've made the necessary adjustments to finally come out on top, start bringing this match back themselves.
Well, it is going to be a pretty fun sight. Going to Kitchen Dining, which is one that we usually see a Pulse on, and that's where we're going to see Canadian on this hallmark operator of his. Pulse coming into play. Not one that we get to see too often, but does come into play on some very particular sites, and again, this being one of them just because of the verticality and the way that you're able to work this top floor with that nitro cell. The more nitro cells that you bring on that bottom floor, the merrier, and you can see that from the likes of DarkZero's lineup. There's 4 nitro cells currently on the defensive end. Pambazoo will be bringing some impacts to make some rotations, but that's going to be it. They're going to try and deal with XSET early here. This might be even giving DZ some control up top just to gain their confidence and then blow them sky high. We'll have to see how it breaks down as XSET's just been let out the gates.
XSET out and about. Let's see where they try to center themselves towards here in the opening few moments of the action for this round. Panba does have an aggressive setup over there towards the aviation room to try and catch the players that would move in to the study within the first couple seconds of the round, but it's going to be a while. We're not seeing any immediate takes come out from XSET. Panba is actually going to move away from his position fairly quickly, more likely because he got spotted out by a drone, but could have just been a timing thing also. Either way, though, gets himself out of the hot seat into much safer harbors closer to the site, or above the site here to try to play it out. Continue to waste the time in a different department. XSET, meanwhile, have moved in, have taken that study control for themselves. They're beginning to push that a little bit further into the map here, as they will notice the barricades blocking off access to Statuary as well as Trophy, so that will more than likely become their main focus as they continue to push forward. Might actually be bypassing that, though, at least in Razor's case, moving the Gemini right away from that as he shifts downstairs immediately and is checking things out. Make sure, more specifically around this red hall, things will be clear, and I believe that extends to the area immediately at the bottom of the red stairs and basement also.
Absolutely. Just want to make sure all of this is clear, and why not? I mean, when you have that hologram, run it anywhere, and you're going to get it back in time. All it takes is patience, so might as well use that to clear out the downstairs area, not risk your drones, which obviously you only have a finite amount of. Either way, XSET, they've gotten some very serious information over towards the south side now, and they're ready to start pushing forward, but the same can be said for DarkZero. They seem very prepared for what's going on currently. Hyper's going to be taking out some X-Kairos pellets downstairs inside of Red Hall is XSET. They've been thwarted at every angle thus far up into this point. Had some free map control, but past that, that's it. Haven't been able to really find themselves a DZ member, anything of the sort. It's just been trying to throw things at the wall and hope that it sticks. But now, big issue is starting to run out of info, and no insight more than likely means no kills. Eclipse is going to get tagged up inside of Bicycle, but they'll be able to get back into sight. And now that we're down on such a low time, XSET have got to do something.
XSET really struggling to get any sort of footing towards the site, and we can see that now. They finally start to drop players, inching themselves towards it. Panba quickly Pokeballs out, Filthy. Flashes are getting chucked in the entrance here to the site now for XSET, but they still don't have the confidence to move in upon it, and this is ultimately going to be the thing that kills it for them if they can't find it in these next few moments here. DarkZero are ready and waiting for this play potential to burst right out, so here we go. It's the shutdown. All the kills going DZ's way, not a single trade to come out in the other direction as they begin to recenter the scoreline themselves, and DZ goes only one more round away from a tie at what would be 5-5.
Honestly, pretty expected with the way that XSET's offense was initially going. It took quite a bit of time there, as well as with just how long it took them to get set up around the actual site. That's so much time to Canadian to read things out with the cardiac sensor and get everyone set up the way that DarkZero wants to be once the execute starts going through. DarkZero already had man advantage walking into that as well, so very straightforward for them. It's a flawless round as they try and bring this back from the depths. And honestly, it is the depths, especially up against XSET, and this isn't a knock against XSET. They've seriously improved, but for DarkZero, especially bringing Canadian into this lineup, I think we've all expected just a little bit more out of them, and we just sadly haven't got to see it. I mean, things are still meshing. This is a very complex team, so I'm excited to see what they can do in the future, but they really need to put on the gas here and try and at least get this to an overtime.
We'll see if that will be possible, as XSET are going to be looking to shut this down themselves, going back to aviation and games now, where we have already seen XSET able to find themselves earlier success at the beginning of this half, but now we're going to be looking to see if, once again, DarkZero can learn from their mistakes, correct it themselves, and tie this game up to its entirety. XSET certainly will be well aware of how to approach and attack the site moving into it. Some huge departures once again for DarkZero. A couple smaller operator change-ups coming into the fold for them. Most notably, we move the Cade out of the lineup this time. Still going to keep that double delay, though, as I believe the Mozzie just gets added in for Hyper, and that will hopefully limit the potential drone intel that XSET are going to be able to get inside of the mid and late rounds here. That would allow for them to properly execute onto the site and take down those DarkZero anchors. Speaking of which, we've got the extended players out towards front stairs yet again, ready and waiting to fend off the study pressure. XSET, though, after initially putting some players over towards it and then still keeping a few on repel, to be fair, are going to move both creators and one more member of the squad over towards the north side of the building to potentially put some pressure in from both sides and make this a bit more of a complex attack. DarkZero is catching on to that, so they're going to move Eclipse into that same neighborhood. Actually, no, it looks like Eclipse was running over there to try and do that angle over towards the study repel, but he will very quickly turn his tail the other direction after realizing that that does not work.
A little scary there as well. SMG-11 is a heck of a gun, but at range can be a huge problem to try and fight with. But for someone like Eclipse, more than likely not going to be too big of an issue, especially with that first bullet accuracy probably being pretty dang high. XSET still working on this north side of the map. Haven't actually traversed into the building just yet, but creators will stop that now right in its tracks. Starting to push forward into Astronomy here. Still has to deal with Trophy and get out towards Red Hall. Pambazoo starting to take some heat up towards the south stairs here as well. I'm assuming from NBK on his angle, but yet again, slow-moving offenses that might cause some problems down the line. Especially if XSET can't try and get this pick early here. Eclipse has thwarted every single plan to try and capture him, and they don't have any utility to actually track him down. So he slipped through the cracks here and has an opportunity to make a big play, but oh no, he's been read out, downed and dusted by creators with the sidearm.
I'm starting to get low here for XSET, but at the same time, with that last kill against Eclipse, small bits of progress beginning to be made here. Isn't enough, though? That's the next question, and we'll get an answer pretty soon as XSET, they approach that 45 to 30 second mark. We're going to have to force themselves in, and the way those kills will go oftentimes be a good decider for how the rest of the round goes as well. Creators, though, keeps things in the favor of XSET as they catch another member of DZ, and now a third as well with NBK's nade to finish it off. Creators continuing to cause havoc here, and actually, I'm pretty sure does end the round while getting traded there in the final seconds. Very, very well done as XSET bully their way into a leading position and as well into map point here.
You know, I was a little worried when we initially started this map for DarkZero because of what we had said before about XSET and their map choices throughout the stage thus far. You know, especially with the callback of what we were talking about in the likes of the Sonics up against XSET on Coastline, that map went completely differently from what you and I thought it was going, you know, what was going to happen. And this is yet another map in which we're having the exact same thing. XSET once again have gotten a map through that no one really thinks that they play, but they clearly do. And not only that, they do it extremely well. And this isn't a map like Coastline where you don't need a hard breacher and there's all these other asterisks that people love to put next to it. Oh, they're only a fragging team. Oh, they can only do this. Oh, they can only do that. Well, what are you going to say about Villa? Especially Villa up against somebody like Canadian, the biggest brain that North America has ever had. And they're currently 6-4. They're looking very, very good. And also on top of that, excuse me.
They're all good.
Creators is having a heck of a game, 13-7-3 currently. You know, doing so well, I choked on my words. So that's how well he's doing.
Not just Creators as well, but Razor continuing to find consistent performance, as I think this player has been for quite a few months now. And NVK, I think, in this matchup right here, finally coming into his own a little bit as well. He's been struggling, I think, to get the right footing down after returning to the game here. And I think he's finally starting to work things out pretty well, specifically inside of his position on the XSET roster, as it's showing in this match with his scoreline actually aligning directly with Razor at 8-6 there. Let's see if he, as well as the rest of XSET, can get the job done, though, as they still need one final round to push things over the edge and claim the full 3 points today versus DarkZero.
Well, we're going to have a change up from DarkZero yet again here. We've seen Kaid used to defend this wall quite often thus far, but this time around, not going to be the case. Hyper will be on Bandit, which will give him some more choices to try and defend this, especially with Bandit tricking if it does come down to that. But he's still going to be holding this cross that we saw him get the big kill from earlier on inside of this game. So we'll see if XSET falls to the same move here. But still has to worry about the player inside of Astronomy as well. So Eclipse should more than likely be able to assist if anything goes awry.
Assist. We'll see how well that assistance works out, though. Hyper gonna have to bail from the top position here. They're facing off against a flashbang. Too much for him to potentially fend off against, and no real assistance available in the immediate area from his teammates, so gives that control up. Allows XSET to take it, and that's going to be pretty much the first half of the map now taken for them. Canadian, a little bit of a bold peek from him, trying to catch some timing plays against the members of XSET as they would move out from the connector over to the top red area. But he's off by just a couple seconds or so ends up with not a whole lot to show for it. XSET, regardless, though, are not leaving that safe harbor they've built up for themselves over towards Trophy and Statuary. They're going to use this extra time they have in excess of about 30 to 40 seconds here to get their drones out on the map and see what exactly DarkZero have built up for themselves on the site.
Well, on the site, DarkZero have been able to reinforce most of this with their player count. They got everybody out of the north side of the building and back into the site, so XSET will have to deal with the full brunt of DarkZero's defenses. But that doesn't mean that they can't coil around this either. Creators, he'll find some space inside of 90, but they still haven't dealt with the initial staircase, the main stairs here. This is the entire area that DarkZero used to get back into the site in the first place. They just kept this lane open with Pambazoo constantly playing that area. So XSET are going to have to try and find a different way around this. So far, this is looking like they'll try it and attempt a plain setup and Eclipse. Oh no, he gets away with that. Oh no, Razor, he's gonna want that one back. Eclipse just steps up and he takes off the head of one, or rather the body. Shotgun blast right there and able to get the initial one. But now DarkZero, they have to do more. XSET, they're set up around the site, but Study looking like a place right now.
Hesitance once again could get the better of XSET in this scenario here, as well as the pinch against them from DZ. No one on DZ making plays, though. This is all on XSET's hands right now. They need to be the one to push their destiny forward, and unfortunately, they've run out of time to do so here. Panba ready for the challenge inside of Study, but will go 1-for-1. Hyper, though, will step right back in to make sure things stay under the control of DZ, as ultimately the XSET roster falls to Prod now in a 1v4. He'll push himself into Aviation, but won't survive for very long. NJR trades him out. DZ holds on to this upstairs site and buys them at least one more round to push this into OT as we go up to round 12 now at a 5-6 scoreline. XSET similarly still have one opportunity to close this out in regulation.
They absolutely do, and we've seen so many different rounds inside of this game thus far, John. That one coming down to clock management and the way that DarkZero ended up handling that. They knew that XSET were pressured and that they had to be the ones to force their hand and try and jump into the site, so they simply sit on their angles and wait for XSET to try and step forward. And honestly, just to let you guys know, this is one of the benefits of being on LAN for Rainbow Six. Online, it's a swing or be swung type of a deal. It's either you're swinging and you're going to win, or you're being swung and you're more than likely going to die. On land, it's a completely different game. Angle holding works a heck of a lot better, and DarkZero are using that to the fullest potential possible right now, especially inside of that round right there. But is it going to be the same inside of this last round? This is the one that DarkZero desperately needs. They're one round away from guaranteeing overtime and guaranteeing at least 1 point, one drop, if XSET are able to take it, but obviously that is not what they want to happen. They want to make away with the max they can in the likes of 2 points, but it all starts here on the kitchen defense.
Well, it's good news for the DarkZero fans out there. This is a site they've already been able to control for themselves earlier on in the half, mainly because XSET got completely overwhelmed by the amount of off-site defense DarkZero had. Was not really able to deal with it in an appropriate fashion. When they finally did, they didn't have the time to get onto the site, as is the story so many times here in Siege. So ultimately got absolutely dumpstered when they finally committed to the push, with DarkZero still having upstairs angles, on-site angles, and angles from pretty much everywhere they could have asked for. Let's see if XSET will do a better job of clearing that out this time and opening up a potential opportunity for them to finally get onto the site and put that case down onto the ground. Could potentially translate into the win for them also. Early action going to be on the usual rappels as well as that first floor balcony. No one immediately inserting themselves, though. We're going to have a couple seconds of delay while Filthy and a couple other members from XSET work on the droning.
On DarkZero, they've also made one new addition to this setup here. NGR is playing the smoke instead of bringing a nitro cell, and I believe it was the like to the mute the last time. Actually, no, I believe it was a Malusi instead. But either way, had that extra nitro cell in there, but this time around they'll bring the delay, so we'll see if that assists them in any way. Overall, Pambazoo is going to continue to hold on to this top floor, but I believe Hyper's in soon enough to try and assist him. Prod currently on drone as well to try and help them get some early info onto these two players here. But the timer, it's already starting to fight against XSET. They're able to get inside of Master, but with Canadian working this cardiac sensor from down low, the defenders up top should have a pretty straightforward way of trying to fight back against this. The crosses are going to be pretty difficult for them to try and deal with if they do want to try and get at NVK. That's going to be the biggest step to try and overcome. But it looks like they really just want to hold on to their space for the time being instead of stepping forward to deal with them. They wanted to try and come inside of the statuary area and then get their kill there.
Half the round now gone here. XSET obviously being allowed to do a lot of top-down setup for themselves here, but as we can see, potential intel coming out back against them. Despite that factor, however, NVK able to lock down his first target successfully, takes out Eclipse, removes the mute from this function. Let's talk about before that they still have to be careful. Hyper still has a stolen drone sitting on the master hatch right there. And Panba is getting hand-fed all this intel to use it for right now. It's not just Panba either. Hyper also contributing to this, but it's going to be Panba that gets the kill. Catches out NVK, pushes the entire execute outside of this position. And now Panba, once again, they still haven't caught on to this drone. It is giving them every single bit of information they could possibly ask for. And no one on XSET has been able to capitalize on taking that down. Canadian now with another frag here against Prod. XSET are just throwing themselves at the site to try and make up for their lack of control, but it is not working in any way, shape, or form here.
Oh, grenade out. Canadian with a big kill onto creators as well as we go into the 1 versus 4. This is looking like it's got overtime written all over it, but Razor, he'll rip the head off a Hyper, and he'll make it a 1 versus 3. He's got time, but with the low mag count, I don't know if he'll be able to do it, but it doesn't really matter. The K1A will be able to take him down, and we've got OT in between these two as DarkZero are able to find their mark and guarantee at least round 13.
Super unfortunate for XSET as that round had some pretty promising beginnings as well. NVK was allowed to open up all the top-down control and ultimately get the team's first kill in their favor, but not catching the drone sitting on the back hatch there allows for such a clean setup for DZ because XSET was far too comfortable with that initial control on the inside of Master. Didn't try to venture out from that point to take anything else, so DarkZero's roamers were able to move upstairs, close in on that, and stop the play before it even had a chance to begin. DarkZero now ties it up at 6-6, takes us to OT, and once again will reignite their own potential to win this map, albeit with one less point, but still, a win's a win at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I gotta agree with you there. And really, it looks like DarkZero's woken up, especially with the adjustments they made for that last round right there. The roam game up top, holding XSET back inside of Master and only giving NVK that limited amount of space to work. I mean, it still worked, right? He gets a kill, but past that, XSET really don't get much done. They're not able to actually deal with the top hole from DarkZero, any of the roamers around the map, and really the pressure coming down the site was only from NVK. So past that, really not too much happening for them inside of that last round, which is sad to say because it really was their opportunity to try and steal this away from DZ. But now DZ, well, the shoe's on the other foot. It's 6-6 right now inside of OT, and not only that, but they've got the defensive end, which both teams have been favored on so far.
Let's see if we see success come out from DarkZero, continuing to excel on their defensive half here, but Keep in mind, they will have to jump onto the attacking side for this next round as well. At least they get the benefit having to play out 2 of these overtime rounds from the defensive half, though, where clearly things have gone a little bit better for them here today. XSET, though, you can't say the same thing, and specifically for 2 of the sites they've attacked, they've had a lot of issues potentially setting up wins versus DZ. This is one of those 2 sites, so let's see what the strategy is going to be for them this time to try and take that control. A lot of utility initially getting deployed over here towards the Astra window, but DarkZero are prepared for that, both in having players stay away from that utility, and now they have NJR and Panba securing this room. Make sure that XSET can't put the appropriate amount of pressure on it. XSET's instead going to shift their presence over towards the usual master hop-in, where they will be able to make their first real insertion into the building.
It's being fully read out right now. If you guys can see Canadian down below currently. Oh, NVK! He just gets around the wall by pixels, folks, before he is obliterated by that nitro cell. Canadian coming within a hair of killing his former partner in crime, but the second one won't miss. It's Eclipse to deliver the blow this time around, and XSET, they're put on their back foot. They'll lose the sledge early here, but they're still going to have soft destruction in the likes of creators that they'll be able to more than likely abuse if they don't start losing this entirely early on. Filthy, what happened, my man? Did you get down? Did you jump off the building? What happened here? Either way, he's going to be down to 20 HP, and they're going to have to fix that. But obviously, can't do that through resets any longer. That was a long time ago. So Filthy, he's going to be stuck on this for the remainder as XSET try and reconcile with this situation. They still have a lot of soft destruction to go through, as well as not a good read as to where these DarkZero defenders are. And in fact, there's still one upstairs.
Still one upstairs here now, still looking to cause potential problems as we go into the final minute of the round. And DarkZero, that player upstairs, could be the make or break difference. It's been a really big theme of this match, is seeing lone extended players or roamers even just not get caught or not get dealt with, and their potential contribution to the late round is the make or break for the defense. We could very well have that once again become a core problem here, as XSET is still working on making the transition with very little time left. That's not even to talk about the horizontal roam going on here too. Hyper still on the inside of the living room is going to drive a wedge between Razor and the site, so he now has to reposition. XSET are scrapping themselves together, just hoping that this push is going to work. But interestingly enough, when Prod starts to inch his way in, he's going to find a relatively open site for the taking, or at least that's what it appears to be. As the rest of these players rotate their way back in, though, they're going to start to put some resistance down for it, but not quickly enough. Plant still goes down onto the ground. Hyper will confirm the planter a second later, though, as Razor falls, leaving only Filthy, Prod, and Creators to play this out in the post plant.
I'm absolutely terrified for XSET right now because of these health pools. They'll have to land their shots as all the angles. DarkZero are aware of them. Filthy, they'll take down Canadian at a minimum, but Prod, he'll hop too. Pamzu will fire back, though, as this timer continues to dwindle. It's getting down so extremely low, and DarkZero, they're able to get it done. XSET, they forced the plant, but they don't have the overwatch. And honestly, they just don't have the health. DarkZero, they throw bodies at it, and that'll solve it. The case gets diffused, and the first offensive round goes the likes of DZ.
Losing way too much inside of the early round yet again here for XSET, and trying to put the pieces back together in those dying few moments. They've obviously probably a little bit surprised too that they're able to get in from Laundry so cleanly, but it's all part of the plan, it seems, to allow them to get in there and for DarkZero to quickly swarm back in to retake it, just not catching the actual plant action itself since there was so few players alive at that point, more than likely. We are going to get an XSET timeout as this turns into a very, very dangerous situation for them. One defensive round coming up, and they need to win it. Otherwise, DarkZero take this matchup that was looking so promising for a potential XSET upset just a few rounds ago.
I mean, XSET, it's not the fact that they've been playing poorly, honestly. I think they've been playing pretty well thus far. I think we're lacking a little bit in certain areas, at least from certain players, but it's not something that they can't fix, especially inside of this overtime. But, it's DarkZero that seriously stepped up to the plate in such a convincing way so far. And, I really don't think that you can oversight that at all. DZ, I know they've had the curse of obviously going to OT all the time and winning things 8-6, but again, they're going through a lot of changes, and that's something we've been trying to drive home all day. So, you can expect quite a bit out of them. I do. You have the likes of Canadian, Hyper, all of these guys on your team. So we all expect quite a bit out of you. But to bounce back in such a convincing way, especially with the scoreline and the way that things went throughout this map, you have got to give it to them at the end of the day. We're back into it after XSET's time out, and it looks like the adjustment they want to make is over to a Goyo, at least for this round, as they'll be 6-picking into that for AVG.
We're going to see Ying get brought in here for the DarkZero lineup as well for Hyper. Potentially give DarkZero that winning execute utility they need to get into the site. It's actually a nice change-up coming out for DarkZero specifically. That was something that was missing for them a little bit. They would get to that wall right before the site and potentially just kind of stand there, just kind of not really have the confidence built up or the utility required to work themselves past that threshold. But a Ying can very much hard breach through it and work their way into the site regardless of what defenders might have just on the other edge. So let's see if that's going to be the make or break difference to allow DarkZero to take control of AVG away from XSET and end this game in 8-6 fashion, giving DarkZero a nice run back here to close the day out with. If not, though, XSET going to tie us up once more and take us to that final pivotal round to decide which team is going to take the match here today, taking the 2 points for the win and the 1 point for the loss. As far as the defensive setup is concerned, once again, no huge surprises here. As Stokes mentioned, we've got the Goyo that was 6 picked in for XSET to provide that extra bit of delay for themselves, but they're still mainly going to rely on the smoke to pull that off for them.
Yes, indeed, as well as, I mean, like, DarkZero, if you guys are in the future, obviously, watching VOD right now, if you got volume on, I just want to say, you guys in your last rounds or potential last rounds thus far inside of this stage, you guys are always going for something crazy, something explosive, and it's happening here yet again. We already saw the hot drop this stage, and we might have things go out with a big bang here in the likes of Ying. If we get the proper things to happen, if the stars align, we could see some serious Candela plays, but it doesn't happen too often, so don't hold your breath for that one, but still could be something cool to see. Either way, though, a minute off the board now into the round as DarkZero's made some solid progress, getting some insight onto the positioning of the XSET members. Creator's going to take some damage from a frag grenade, I do believe, from Eclipse, but it's not going to get rid of the Goyo shield here. Just going to get tagged up just a little bit. He actually has this one as well as one up the stairwell as well, so it looks like XSET have set up for this space, really begin to try and fight back. There'll be some smoke grenades down into the bottom as Pamazoo will be forced forward, but also someone hopping in beside him as well. I believe that's going to be the likes of Hyper, obviously not having to deal with an XSET member because things more than likely would have went awry. Razor's going to get taken down as well as Eclipse is a 6th sense downstairs inside of the hallway, and XSET, they're looking worse for wear going into this last minute and a half.
XSET down to 3 and all contained within the site for the most part as well here, so no potential last-minute additions. Stab into the back of DarkZero's attack and potentially change the outcome of this round. It's all going to be front-facing forward here when DarkZero open up the final breach and get prepared to push in themselves. We can see Canadian potentially already vying for that final breach as a flash rings through. Will not see the full wrap, though, into the inside of Aviation. Canadian needs to reconfirm a few things before the team's going to feel the confidence to do that. However, on checking that, they should once again feel the confidence to move forward here. They're just going to figure out where that camera is going to need to be isolated out from and try to move in from there. Unfortunately for them, though, that hesitance is going to cost them. Over towards the study doorway, Canadian will get caught from a nitro. NVK still has one in his pocket to chuck out here too, so DarkZero could still end up on the losing end of this round, despite what they built up for themselves in the opening 2 minutes. Time to find out if they can get the job done. We enter the final few seconds, and DarkZero finally seem ready to move forward.
Yeah, it seemed like DarkZero was driving the knife into XSET, but they stopped. They hesitate for a second and let XSET back into it as they fight back. That M590 at range will deal enough damage to Eclipse, and now it's down to the 1 versus 1. Hyper, he's got so much ammo inside of this T95, but he's going to commit to the plant instead. Does he follow through with it, though? Filthy, he'll try and get him to fake, and it works out here. Shotgun out now, and the closer he gets, the more damning this is. The shotgun will get it done, and XSET stay alive through round 14. We'll need round 15 to find our victor.
XSET just barely wiggle their way into a winning position there as once again DarkZero hesitates at the site threshold. They're building up all of the map control they needed and even rotating a third player over to the north side of the building, potentially add a new angle into that execute. All for naught ultimately, though, as slowing down allows XSET to realize where these potential plays are going to come from, and at least in one instance, set up the nitro cell kill that was coming in from the north side and get ready for the rest of the swings that would come out from inside of study there to still trade it out and run that timer down to a no pointer to give XSET that 7th round. DZ is back on defense, though, so they're going to be feeling a little bit more comfortable about their chances to try and close things out as we go into the final round of the map.
Yeah, they definitely got to be happy with this. I mean, they've pushed it all the way to the limit, and on the very last round, they're gifted defense, which could be a huge boon for them, so we'll see how it goes. They're bringing Hyper back on the Bandit just to try and deny these walls. We could see it used for something else here as Eclipse. He's going to be slapping a couple of these Mute Jammers down on these walls as well. Remember, he did end up getting to change, so if Prod wants to be cheeky about things, he can use those X-Kairos pellets a little bit higher on the walls to make some openings, but it's not going to be anything that you can really abuse just standing there. Maybe if you got up like a couch or something, you might be able to find a pretty cheeky angle, but that's something that they definitely have to have practiced out, and something that we're more than likely not going to see today, especially with XSET bringing creators on that soft breach, so they'll be able to go down low and get rid of those Mute Jammers. As for the rest of DarkZero setup, though, it's looking straightforward as to what we had been seeing before. Canadian hopping back on the Chonka here, which, I mean, they've been bringing it, but we haven't seen anything happen with it just yet here. No real utility used to call back on, or really much, so hopefully we can see something out of this operator here.
We're going to see that reinforcement go down instead of the soft wall being left on the 90 angle to get into the sights in those final couple seconds there. So no worries for anybody who might have been a bit concerned about that potentially getting left open. XSET, either way, though, we've got them focusing on a different direction entirely, as they're also going to try to make their initial insertion from the north side of the map. And we can see both Hyper and Eclipse now getting ready to potentially defend against that if XSET follow through with it. Still waiting on a few of their players to get into position to do so, however, and they are really working on droning this out to a pretty big extent, as I think all three players that were up here on the rappel or balcony were actually on their drones as of a few seconds ago. So Razor, along with Creators, finally going to have that confidence to hop in. DarkZero wants nothing to do with this, so those two players that were initially here are going to back up and fall to the site.
The good news is that XSET has had to play through this before, where we saw DarkZero fall off and come back into sight. So XSET will be almost double the pace at this point, already knowing that this space is clear. They get very forward with the drones early here, and that'll gift them that. But now they have to deal with a couple of different other things going on, most notably Eclipse down low inside of Library right now, which could be a big piece for DarkZero later on, given that Nitro Cell's still in his pocket. Hyper's going to have one as well, but he'll more than likely play that one from sight, as Eclipse will try to avoid all sight lines here, any drone info coming in or anything of the sort, to try and get this to work out. Could also just be gifted some kills around this space as well if these XSET players simply fall into his lap. As for XSET's offensive push up towards the north side of the building, though, they're really committed to this drone game right now. They don't really know if they want to necessarily push forward on this end, as they're starting to make some adjustments. It's starting to come down to the south side instead, and we could actually have some very serious implications happening as Creators across the door. He'll be able to tag up Pambazoo on the south stairs here, but still has one to worry about around the library area. And DarkZero done such a solid job so far of delaying. They've given XSET absolutely nothing up until now.
Candela's working their way out very quickly into the site, but DZ also with something louder to throw at XSET. They're going to take out Filthy with that. Creators instantly exchanging it as he carries this forward still for the team. NVK getting access to the bar, will work his way in for the backside, but Canadian turning it all around, trying to close it out all by himself, but cannot get the job done. Instead, it's the last player alive from XSET. It's the Yana from XSET that gets the job done and closes out on the map for XSET as they close it down in overtime here, nearly losing the advantage they have as they initially get themselves to 6 rounds, but are able to bring it back here in the final round of OT to give themselves another upset victory versus DarkZero at 8-7.